Grab my headsets while I'm talking because I want to be sure our mics are working correctly. So I want to make sure I can hear everything, and I just can't. Good. Anyway, Christy is here in studio live, and we are really excited to have her today. And I think you're all going to enjoy. I'm not hearing ourselves. I don't know if I've got the wrong headsets on or not. Let me see. What?
You don't have it on. So you're on number 2 and 4. You barely have it at 12. They're at 3:30.
Up here?
Yes, 3:30. And turn the inside off.
And this one? Which inside?
Rounded. The inside one off.
Oh, this one. Okay, there we go. Are we good now?
Yes.
Thank you. Screwed up starting the show already. I still can't hear us, so I don't know what's going on. Henry will tell me if we're on.
The headsets.
All right, I don't need the headsets. I can't break old habits from the old radio days. So in the studio with me today is my friend and author and TEDx speaker and coach. And I just could go on and on. Just really an extraordinary woman. In fact, she won a wonderful award here in Colorado as one of the top 25 most powerful women in business in Colorado. So that's pretty impressive. Christy Bells, author, and her new book is, Christy, just say the name of it. I love the name of your book. Just say it.
Oh, God of Second Chances, Here I Am Again.
I love that. Oh, God of Second Chances, Here I Am Again.
Here I am again.
Yeah, I feel that way almost every day, don't you?
Me too. That's why it's titled that, every day. Oh, dang, I'm here again.
Christy, I want to, before we go into this, because a lot of people write books, and sometimes people don't have, are we on okay, Henry? Is it working? I didn't see the...
You don't have it up high enough on number 4.
This one?
It's 3:30.
There.
Yes, there you go.
That's it?
Bottom one, 2.
Bottom one, 2. Okay.
And then number 2?
Should I start over?
There you go. Yes, you should start.
I should start over? Are you sure we can hear it now?
Echo here?
I'm hearing an echo. There, I can see it now. I can see it's on the monitor. Sorry, folks. We went to go live, and we had a little bit of an issue. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce Christy again. For those of you that heard it, I'm sorry, but she's worth reintroducing. She's great. This is my friend Christy Bells. Christy has written a new book. It is, and I'm going to let her say the name of the book.
Oh, God of Second Chances, Here I Am Again.
Oh, God of Second Chances, Here I Am Again. I saw the title. You know, Christy has won one of the 25 most powerful women in business in Colorado award from the Colorado Women's Chamber of Commerce, and is a coach, a life coach, a business coach. She works with individuals and corporations. She has a lot of credentials. And before we start talking about the book, I think it's important because a lot of people write books and it's based on experience, it's based on a number of things. But this book, I couldn't put it down, and part of the reason was because not only is it based on life experiences, but it's also based on a woman who has the background, the education, and the certifications to write a book of this nature, which I think is important. So why don't you talk a little bit about your business, a little bit about your background, and then we're going to hop into some questions about the book.
Yeah, great. So my business is empowerment coaching and consulting. So I started as a social worker. I was in sales and marketing for a long time, and then quit that lucrative job to become a social worker. People thought I was crazy, so I had my BSW and my MSW, and loved social work. Practiced for about 8 years, and I burned out. I was burned at both ends. I had a young child at home, and I decided to go home. Thought I would be a stay-at-home mom, and I like to say the universe had a different plan for me. So I started moving in the direction of coaching and started building my practice there. As time went on, I added more certifications. I'm an avid learner, so I was constantly learning new things that I could support people that were around me with. And then I got into more corporate development work, human development work through a tool that I love called the Leadership Circle, and did some consulting all over the world with that tool. Yeah.
You went all over the world with that?
Well, I had clients, so I work virtually. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I know you love to travel. That was a good.
I do love to travel, but it's so nice you do everything virtually because you can travel and still work if you choose.
I know. Isn't that an amazing thing today? We can do so much more than we used to be able to. Christy, let's talk about your book. I picked up this. She sent me an advance copy. I read the book. I read it in one sitting.
I can't believe you did.
It was like 2.5 hours, I think, because I'm not the fastest reader. But it is, and I want to go back and read it again, but I wanted to be sure that I touched on the critical points when we interviewed. And there were a few things that jumped out at me. And one of them was, in the beginning of the book, it talks about the importance of new beginnings. That's one of the first things you talk about. And I think that's an important thing for us all to remember, because every breath we take is actually a new beginning. And so why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, you know, it's moment by moment when you actually stop to pause. I have a technique I call permission to pause, and so I literally had to learn that for myself because I was such a busy, crazy, frenetic person, and I think sometimes I didn't even breathe. I sat in front of my computer, and I looked over to the side of my computer one day, and I saw a magazine that said permission to pause, and I thought, oh, permission, like I'm gonna give myself permission to pause, and so I paused, and it was really significant for me because that moment of kind of stillness and quiet created an opportunity for me to just relax, right? And I wasn't so frenetic and getting into the inbox then, so.
Isn't that important when we just take these mini vacations?
Oh, right.
I mean, even if, it sounds echoey in here, I'm not quite sure what's going on, but we'll live with it.
Okay.
The thing with me is that sometimes I just have to stop.
Right.
And that's it. And just do something mindless, whether it's watch TV or just be quiet, because I just have to let all the stuff go away, because I can't think when all this stuff is coming just like boom, boom, boom.
Right.
And especially when I'm writing a press release or anything of that nature,
right.
it just does it to me. And I thought that was really good advice. The other thing, and I'm kind of jumping out of sequence in your book,
yeah.
but living our truth. I think that was in part about courage and living. And there's a whole chapter on courage and what that looks like when you have courage in your own life to take those steps to change or to accept who you are and to finally say, I don't give a crap if I have 10 pounds extra on me.
That's right.
I'm happy. I like eating circus peanuts, or whatever. Since it's holidays, I thought I'd throw the circus
peanuts.
Weren't they the worst? Oh.
Don't go there.
So I don't really. So why don't you talk about the living truth courage part of the book?
You know, I started the book with courage because it took great courage to do some of the things that I've done in my life, and I really, courage is, if you look at the root word of that, it's actually of the heart. And so I talk a lot in my book about following my heart versus my thinking and my head, because if I followed my thinking all the way throughout my lifetime, I would not be where I am today. But I listened to myself and took steps. I'm from Kansas, so there's funny parts in the book about me loving being from Kansas, and the Cowardly Lion from The Wizard of Oz is a great, what's the word I want, metaphor that I love, or that's not the right word, but
yeah,
anyway, the Cowardly Lion and his courage just cracks me up, and so I love that, and when I find myself at a place of like, I don't know, like what's next, I listen, and if I'm scared, I let myself be scared, and then I just kind of lean in and trust, and I think that is about the authenticity. I was teaching a group of women yesterday, and we were talking about just aspire to your desire, right, and get clear about what your heart's telling you, because that's the truth. That is where your
that
truth
is your
from.
truth, right?
Yeah,
how you
right.
live, and it sometimes gets lost. I've spoken about this, and I know you have. It gets lost in the everyday. That you have to be this thing for everybody else,
That's
but
right.
you never get to be who you are for you.
That's right.
I mean,
Yeah.
you have to be mom, you have to be the worker, you have to be the wife, you have to be the cleaner,
Right.
whatever it is, the chauffeur,
Yeah.
At work you have to be the person in charge, and when you just get to be and drop all the rest of those words.
That's right.
And
Right.
I think your book really demonstrated that.
Thank you.
I really, Christy, you did a remarkable job on this book, and let's say the title again so people know, and tell them how they can get it.
Oh God of Second Chances, Here I Am Again. It is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and it releases on Tuesday, October 18th. So you're getting the pre-information on the book itself, but it is available for pre-sale. It goes on sale on Tuesday.
On Tuesday, on sale, and it is worth it. And it's one of those books you're going to want to keep and make notes in and go back and use. And I don't say that often because I'm not a big self-help book fan, I just think I used to say you only need one, the little engine that could. That was it, I was like, oh, did you read this? No, I have the little engine that could. No, did you? I said, nope, I've got the first one ever made, that's it. But this one it's more than that. It's not really self-help. It's kind of an introspective look at yourself and how you can become more of yourself. Am I correct in that analysis of it?
Yeah, absolutely. it's really my toolbox of life, of how it's everything that not everything, because I'll share another story about that another time, but
Uh-oh.
I'll just share it now since I opened Pandora's box. I was on retreat last January, and I always start my retreats with women by having them share their story. And so we had a really deep Friday evening at the retreat, and the next morning, one of the women said, you know what I'm really aware of is I am aware of what I didn't say last night. And I was like, oh, like hand to the forehead, oh my gosh, like what didn't I say in my book? What didn't I, right?
Yeah,
so now I'm like, well, there's a second book coming, obviously.
What didn't I say?
What didn't I tell?
Yeah, what didn't I tell?
So the book is really I have social work degrees, I have a lot of certifications, I'm heart-centered, I lead from my heart. So the book is really about, and I'm a women's empowerment coach, so I'm very, very passionate about women's choices and women's voices. I do that on the TED stage that I work on. I do that through my practice in coaching. I do that through my practice in consulting.
And through your community work.
And through my community
Why don't we
work,
mention that briefly, because I know it's so
Yeah.
important to you.
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and tell about the United Way, what you do with
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Well, I have been involved with several different organizations. Most recently, my husband and I are both involved with Metropolitan State University, and we're chairing their endowment to really get that school up. It's a 4-year college. It's free to everybody. It's not free to everybody. It's accessible to everybody. It is such a remarkable place, and so really my heart and soul. And actually, my book launch party is going to be on the campus.
Oh, that's great. Tell about the launch party for those of you who are in Denver. Is it open to everyone?
Yeah.
Okay.
We just
Let's
need
talk
an
about it.
RSVP. So it is at St. Cajetan, sorry. It's on the Metropolitan State University. It's Tuesday, October 18th. We're starting at 4:30. We'll do a little presentation around 5:15. I'll sign books, and then I think I have 6 of the 11 TED speakers will be there with me who also will be signing books. So
That's awesome. So it's like a TEDx book signing.
yeah, kind of, yeah.
TED Extra.
TED Extra. Oh, that's a good one. I'm stealing that
It's
one.
a TED Extra.
event. Perfect. I love that.
That's it. That's what you should call them.
It's
TED Extra
TED
event.
Extra event. Oh, I'm using that wrong.
Oh, you can use it. You
Okay,
can use
thank
anything you want.
Thank you.
You've done so much for our community, and I personally
you.
admire you a great deal.
Oh, you're so
And
kind. Thank
what
you.
I wanted to talk about too was leading with your heart. You kind of touched about this a little bit.
Yeah.
And you were talking about some heart science in the book. Maybe
Yeah.
we
Oh,
could
yeah.
share a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I'm certified in something called Heart Math. It's really a fascinating body of work. It's so well researched and documented. Heart Math, if you go to the website, Google it, like please explore it because it is probably the most simple tools and techniques that I learned in all of my tools, and it's one of the most unbelievable because what it does is it builds coherence between the head and the heart. And coherence basically means is that you align those two because we're so identified in our culture with our thinking, and we think that we are our thoughts. And Heart Math really helps you build the coherence, and it's so good for the nervous system because it calms you down. It's a very simple technique. Do you want me to
Sure.
support you in that? So Heart Math, the most simple technique, what you do is you start with your breath. You breathe in for 3 and out for 3. And you find that rhythm with your attention on your heart, your awareness in the area of your heart center. And then once you're comfortable with the breath, you allow yourself to bring in the regenerative feeling of love, gratitude, appreciation. So I always think of my dog. He always makes me smile, right? And so just in that moment, just like in the permission to pause technique, Heart Math is just the ability just to build the coherence between the head and the heart. It's a fabulous technique and tool, and there are many others in the Heart Math
And you
world.
mentioned some of that in your book too,
Oh, yeah.
some things that you can do and the way that
Yeah.
you can be a part of that in your book. So
Yeah.
the book not only tells you, I won't say it tells you anything, it kind of enlightens you about certain techniques, certain processes, certain things that we do that we probably are not helping ourselves by doing, and examples of not only people that have spoken about this from your TEDx speakers and from your own life, and then again, tools to use at the end of each chapter that if you want to incorporate those tools, it might help you go through these processes. And honestly, it's really a great book.
Oh, thank you.
I'm just looking here because one of the things I thought was so powerful in the book is you tell your own story.
I do.
And I think the power of telling our story, not I don't want to say living in the past, because that's like to me, that's the worst thing you can ever do.
Right.
It's like, it's done.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, it's gone, overdone. But the past creates you, so it's important to remember it, as you mentioned in your book, as you move forward and you plan or you don't plan or you willy-nilly, however you get through your life,
Right.
you know.
Right.
But talk about the importance of people sharing their own story and accepting their own story from what it's done, good and bad.
Right. Oh gosh, that's such a great question. You know, the power of sharing our story it's just incredibly powerful. It's vulnerable, so it creates an opening for connection when people share. And the number one thing I think happens is that, and this is a really important part of the book and why I wrote it, is I thought I was the only one for a long time. I thought I was the only one that had all these negative thoughts. I thought the only one that was screwing up on a regular basis. I thought I was the only one, blah, 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 blah. And what I realized in my practice over the years and, you know, my life is I'm not the only one. And with me being vulnerable and sharing my story, I want other women to realize that they're not alone. And the more of us that share our stories, the more we're going to recognize that we're not alone, right? We are connected.
Yeah, and I think that's hard, especially so much pressure is put on to be perfect in today's world, and we're going to talk about that too in the book.
Yeah.
But, and you know, I remember when my kids were little, it was, you know, and my husband traveled extensively for his job. He was the international vice president, so he was gone frequently. And so I thank God my mother was around.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality was, it was like you're trying to have your kids get to school on time, get your job done. I was running a radio station. I'm doing, you know, I've got 2 kids at home that are in elementary school. I've got a husband that travels, you know, and you run yourself ragged trying to make sure everything was okay. And
Right.
I'll never forget the day that I just said, you know what? I don't care if my kids sleep in their clothes from the night before and want to go to school. And I think I'm a bad mom. It's not going to matter, because the kids will always have trouble getting up.
Always, right?
And I was like, okay, brush your teeth, get ready for bed, put your clothes on for tomorrow, go to sleep. And it was like,
do what we have to do.
it was like, oh, I was freed.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was, you know, you do, and I realized, you know what, I don't care if my kid looks perfect every day, if she doesn't have a ribbon in her hair, especially when they're in kindergarten and stuff like that. I mean, it's like, you know, you go to send them to school and you think they gotta look like they're something off of a American Doll thing or something.
Right, yeah.
And once you get over that and accept a little mud and dirt and, you know,
Yeah,
oh, too
what
bad,
is.
you send them with a peanut butter sandwich instead of some kind of a high protein.
Yeah. Yeah. I had my son was skin sensitive. He had I forget that. Anyway, so he only wore shorts. He would not wear pants ever. And in the middle of winter, he would only wear shorts. And so the teacher called me one day and said, "You need to dress your kid more appropriately." I said, "His pants are in his backpack, and if you can get pants on him, then you feel free to do that." I'm like, there's nothing else I can do. He's not putting on pants for me, so.
Well, see, and when you finally come to that realization, I think you talk about that in your book, and I'm going to let you talk about it more, that, you know what, guess what, my kid doesn't have to be the all-star athlete in 3 sports. He doesn't have to, you know, he just has to be loved and have some friends and do a couple activities he likes.
Yeah.
And we don't have to be at school on time every day. We can try.
Right.
And once you let that go, it's a lot better.
It's a lot easier. Oh my gosh, so much less
Talk
stressful.
about that perfect syndrome.
Yeah, so perfect. Actually, my TED Talk was based on the illusion of perfection because my belief system is that it's bull, kunky. And what I know from understanding it more is that perfect really doesn't exist. It is a story that we make up about how we believe something is, could be, should be, and we live into that. And a lot of times those ideas of perfection aren't even ours. You know, as you said, there's societal beliefs that we have to be, your kids have to look perfect every day. Like they can't, you know, they can't wear shorts in the wintertime because whatever that is, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's always a story, and it's so fascinating when I work with people who really struggle with perfectionism to see what the story is and whose story they're telling themselves, right, about how it's supposed to be. So I think it's really, you know, powerful to learn it and to understand it differently because it just, it doesn't exist. There is no such thing as perfection.
Well, I'm going to argue with you for 1 minute.
Yeah, please
There
do.
is such thing as a perfect you when you find yourself
That's
and
right.
accept those
That's
things.
right. That's right.
But outside of that, there is no perfection.
That's right.
There's only a realization that I'm perfect just exactly the
That's
way
right.
I am.
Yeah.
I was made this
That's
way.
right.
This is the way I came into
Yeah.
the world. Love me, hate me,
Love
but
it.
this is it.
Yeah, love it.
And
love
you
it, love
address
it.
that in your book
I do.
too.
I start with the premise of all things whole, perfect, and complete. Whole, perfect, and complete. You are whole, perfect, and complete. I am whole, perfect.
And if you're listening, think about this. You are whole.
Right.
You are perfect. And you are complete. With
At
the
the
scars
essence.
and the joy and all the things that come along
All
with
the bad
it.
decisions.
Yeah, all the bad decisions that led you to a good one.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
I mean, they usually do if you just give them time.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not going to say that. You could get stuck in some really bad decisions, like let's say you started using Coke or something, you know,
Right,
like
right.
that. But outside of that, there's probably not many things that you've done wrong that you didn't learn from and you didn't move forward with and didn't shape you. And if you like who you are, then you have to like. And I think that's kind of addressed in your book as well.
Yeah.
You have to like your past. You have to like who you were
Right.
because that made you become who you are.
That's
So
right.
learn to love old you.
That's right. Right. I write a lot in my book about my family of origin and how, you know, I literally at the age of 18 just decided I was going to be something else, and I left my, you know, all of that behind. My dad died a year later. I was 19, and so I just was propelled into this world of thinking that I had to be something other than, and I had a lot of judgment about my family, about what happened and how they behave and what they do, and I now look back and think, God, what a gift I had my crazy effed up family.
But they loved you.
Oh, they loved
And
me.
see, and I've always contended, no matter how screwed up you are, if the kid knows they're unconditionally loved,
Yeah.
you can get through it. You might get through unscarred, but you'll get through it.
That's right. Yeah,
Most
I knew I was
important.
loved, for sure. Yeah.
And that's good. That's the part that you can't. The other stuff you can look at and how it shaped you and everything else, but people that lack that basic love
Yeah.
it's really hard to overcome.
It's so hard. You know that from your work with kids, too.
Yeah, I see it.
That's one area of social work I could never do is the kids, because I just, anyway, we'll get off track here, but oh my gosh.
Well, you know, yeah, it's hard. I mean, but you know, when you do volunteer with children, which I do a lot.
Yeah.
I'm on the board at the Listen Foundation for Hearing Impaired Children, and have been involved with Camp Wapi Api
Yeah.
for children that suffer from pediatric cancer and their siblings. And I'm
Kudos
also
to you for
helping.
your work.
I'm also helping with Cobbled Streets. We're taking
Yeah,
coaching
foster
some
kids.
kids,
Yeah.
foster kids.
Yeah.
But you know, that's kind of been my passion.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
everyone has their own, but.
That's true.
But I'll tell you, there's nothing, I mean, I don't care what's going on in your life. If you see a kid going through similar thing,
Yeah.
it's like, I'm fine. I'm just fine.
Yeah.
You know, but anyway, in your book, you mentioned EER.
Yes.
Would you explain that?
Yes. So what happened is that when I left social work, I started playing around with some new theories and ideas and started training with different leaders. And one of the things that came into my experience was working in the energetic field of the body. You know, if you get that we're all one energy, we're all just vibrating at different levels, right? And you understand that there's an energy to everything, and there's actually an energy to emotions, or feelings. I separate feelings from emotions. I call it emotion the energy. And so what I do is a combination of social work practice, therapy, somatic work, working at the energetic body. So I name that emotional energetic repatterning, because you have to understand that emotions are stored in your body whether or not you recognize them or not. So at multiple levels, if you're starting to feel something physically in your body, you know, there might be something underneath the surface energetically to look at. And I was not aware of that with all of my education and all my learning and all my spiritual practice. And that energy aspect of my business is really what I focus on now. Like when I work individually with somebody, I'm always working with the energy of what's going on.
And I believe that, you know, I think that when we go through times of great stress, it plays a toll
Yes, it does.
on your body, or years of ignoring your self-care.
That's right.
And that's another thing that I think that you're really talking about self-care in this book.
Yeah.
And we're not saying go get a facial, but we're
Yeah,
but
right.
we're if you want to, that's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's talking about taking the time to do what's best for you, because one of the things, and particularly women, and if you're in that age where you have children, we do not do is we do not stop and say, if I'm not good, then no one else around me. I can't take
That's
care of
right.
them. So mom has to stay healthy, because
That's
mom's got a long haul going, and let me tell you, it doesn't get over at 21.
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
Mine will be 22 in 2
Yeah,
weeks.
it goes on a few more years.
Ah!
But it's a lifetime thing. I mean, you worry about your child your whole entire life. So if you're not there, then who will be?
That's right.
And so if you can do anything to take care of yourself, to be mentally, physically, because it's all connected, spiritually,
That's right.
do it. Because if you don't have enough to do it for yourself, do it for the people you love. Because
right.
with the worst thing that could happen isn't that they have wrinkled clothes going to school. And it isn't that somebody showed up unexpectedly and there's dog hair all over your carpet.
Right.
And a sink full of dishes. The worst thing that can happen is you're not there to hug them when they arrive.
That's right.
You know?
Yeah, your health and self-care is so important. You know that. So just a strategy, and I talk about this in my book. So I don't know how long ago I started this, probably 8, maybe. I mean, Charlie was still young, but I needed to create space in my life for myself, and I set my alarm clock for 15 minutes before I would normally wake up. And I had read The Artist's Way, and one of the first tools that Cameron talks about is morning pages. So you start with you don't get out of bed, you pick up your pen and you start writing in your journal, right? And you do 3 longhand pages. And I started that practice, I don't know how many years ago. And now my morning practice is I wake up, my husband hears me downstairs, he brings me a cup of coffee, and I journal, and then I meditate, and then I try to read something. And I always try to put something positive in the world. So I peruse Facebook for a positive quote of some sort. So you'll see that from me often if you're following me.
I see those,
so,
yeah, they're good.
Yeah, thank you.
That's cool.
Yeah, so
Well,
that's
you
just
did a little different than me. I took a break from my kids. I just gave them Benadryl. They slept for like an hour. I was able to do anything I wanted. It was great. No, I'm just kidding. I just Benadryl the little bastards. That was it.
That's it. That's all.
No, I'm just kidding. They're probably listening.
I have a
going,
Benadryl
Shut
story.
up, Mom.
I know. Really, shut up, Mom. Yeah.
Anyway, I think that's so important, though, taking that time.
Yeah, you have to make it as women. 2 things I would love the audience to know, and I talk about this in the book, is that I think there are 2 things that are fundamental for women's mental, emotional, and spiritual health. One, to take time, put your own oxygen mask on first, and find out how you can do that. And the second is we need each other. Women grow in development with each other,
Yes.
right? And so do not isolate. If you aren't feeling well, if something's going on, if shit's hitting the fan, find a friend and talk to them and connect, because that's how we grow and develop.
Connection is so important, and as we
Yeah.
get older, we tend to get less connected.
That's right.
You know, and stay home more, and also I think the false connections that you can make through, and I'm guilty of this because I love it. I binge watch, you know, it's like I'm watching Handmaid's Tale now, so every time my husband comes in the room, I call him a name. It's like, I can't look at you, I'm watching Handmaid's Tale.
That's right.
He's like, shut up. But you know, I think that we can get connected in ways that are not true connection, not a connection of a person touching a person, just saying hey and hugging you, or not connection with sitting down and sharing meal and breaking bread. And I think one of my goals this year is to, every month I'm trying to reconnect with 2 or 3 different people that I haven't seen in a while. Because I've been so blessed with so many people in my life, but you can't see them all.
You can't.
And it's so hard.
That's right.
And so I thought, you know, if I actively take a swing at this, I'll reconnect with some folks, because I got disconnected between COVID for a year and then cancer for 9 months. I didn't do anything.
Right.
You know, it's like, you know, and you start getting, like, you don't have good thoughts then. And
No,
you
it's
know,
hard.
It's
You're
hard.
isolated and you feel alone, and
So connection, I saw that in the book, and joining a women's group, getting out with your friends. I mean, even if you don't want to, put one foot in front of the other.
That's right.
You know, fake it till you make it, right?
That's right. Fake it till you make it. Yeah. Yeah.
Then we both belong to a wonderful women's group, which is, and that's how I met Christy, was through Camp Experience.
That's right.
And our good friend Betsy Wiersma.
Yes.
Tell a little bit about the retreats that you do.
So I love to take people through my course. I have a 15-week course I created. Somebody asked me yesterday, like, when did you do all this? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I really don't. Like, my mom died on the March 5th of 2000, and I'm sure I had all this in my brain, but somehow I think through my grief process, this just came through me. I don't know. And I had a lot of help. Like, I didn't. Anyway, so I teach Uproot. It's a 15-week course, and it's about really looking below the surface at what are the root causes of our discomfort, our bad behaviors, our negative patterns of being, our thoughts, whatever. So we go really deep into what are those patterns underneath the surface, and then we create new opportunities to develop something else. So my retreat started by taking the women that went through my course with me to the next level, and really doing a lot more energetic work. So that is my love, and I think that's something I want to move forward. This last year with Betsy, as we just mentioned, I was in Maui with her, and we had a fabulous retreat there as well. So, yeah, retreats are, I love retreats because when you get a group of women together who are willing to be vulnerable and share, and I tend to bring that out in people.
You do.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah, they're really wonderful. So my website has my retreats for next year.
You're one of those people like you walk down the street and you say hi to somebody. The next thing you know, they tell you their whole life story.
Yeah,
I know
true.
you are. I used to call that weirdo radar, but you can't say that.
I can't say that anymore. My girlfriend.
Because I would happen to me. I'd be walking down the street, and if there was a strange person within 1,000 miles, they would find me.
Yeah. Yeah, my girlfriend says we were in New York at a club one night, and this woman sat down next to me and just started like spilling her guts. And my girlfriend came up later, and she's like, "You have social worker tattooed on your forehead."
You have radar, like empathy radar or something.
Yeah,
you know, that's what it really is, empathy radar.
I do have it. Yeah.
You have it. I have weirdo radar. I only get weird people. You get people that need help, and you can help them.
You get weirdo
I get like, oh no, I do.
You are so funny.
No, I have it. I can tell you stories you wouldn't believe it. They come out of the woodworks for me. They do. Oh gosh. Anyway, I like the part where you talk about trusting the river flow.
Oh God.
The flow of the ebb and the tides of our lives, and
Yes.
trusting the flow.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that too. So the river analogy I use a lot. And when actually we're in Northern Retreat, I take people to the water. So when I'm in the mountains, we go to the river, and when we're in Florida, we go to the ocean. The river knows where it's going, and when you use that as a metaphor for your life, right? You actually can say, oh, the river knows where it's going. If I just get my boat in it and put my oars up, right, and let the river take me, you go where you are destined to be. But me in my younger years, I turned the boat backwards and like paddled like hell to get upstream, right, because I was afraid of where I was going to go. Or I'd hit the bump in the road or the eddy, right, and I just hang on. I'm just stand right here because I'd be too afraid to move on. Yeah, just like get
fear is really that we're going to touch on that after this.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, the river analogy. Trust the flow. Right? Trust the flow. The river knows where it's going. It always unfolds, and I love the metaphor. The river goes to the ocean, right? It goes back into the oneness, and that whole
process.
Yeah, the whole process is.
And you know, the older you get, the older I get, the more you think about that, and you realize all the things in your life that happened that guided you towards the next step, or or gave you the skill sets to get through something that really wasn't the best. I wonder what happened there. It might just be odd. Oh, there it is. Okay. Anyway, you know, and I think that's a great analogy, that trusting the river flow. Yeah, trusting the flow. And you know, I mean, sometimes the flow can trick you though. A little bit. You can hit a waterfall or something. Then you got to trust that you'll find the boat and you'll get back in it.
Well, you can get excited, right? Because you know there's chaos before breakdown. I call it breakdown before breakthrough. Margaret Wheatley's work on chaos theory is brilliant, right? Because you know, and when I get to the other side, I'm gonna have a conversation about this. I don't know why we have.
I love the chaos theory. I know.
I love chaos theory too, but you know, why is it so hard? Like, why can't we just say, you know, I'm in the flow, I'm going here, I got my, right, and you hit that bump, and you're like, gosh, dang it, like, really?
You touched on this in your book, though, I think, and I'm going to tell you where I pulled out on this. It was when you talked about future, remembering the future. Because, you know, it's like there are people in the world who, they're miserable right now, but in 2 months, like, they're going to retire. They hate their job, for example.
Right.
But in 2 months, they're going to retire. So they only have to go 2 months, but every day they stay focused on the minute they're in and how much they don't like it in that minute.
That's right.
Instead of thinking, you know what, it's going to be like this in just a few more months. Live, at that time I'd say, live for the future, or live a little bit in it.
Yeah.
And your book addressed that a little bit.
Yeah.
And other times you want to live in that moment. I mean, it's important to live in the moment you're in, but if you're stuck in a bad moment, you got to go through it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you have to be with what is. I mean, that's Ram Dass, right? Loving what is. Like, you gotta love what is. Anyway. Yeah, so.
You know, so I don't know how you remember the future. That's what we're.
Oh, thank you.
No, I could tell you because because I talked about 3 different things. That's why.
Get my brain to 8-track it.
You're getting my ADD brain. How about this?
So remembering the future. So this came up years ago with a teacher. We talked about this concept, and it was around the time that Greg Braden wrote Fractal Time. And fractal time is really the science of time being measured the same. It's the same across all spectrums, right? And so if we are conditioned to remember our past, like what if that's just a learned behavior? We are conditioned to remember our past. But what would be possible if we could remember our future, and if our future was based on our desires, right?
Yes.
So I pull some biblical quotes through that. You know, it's the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom, right? Like, if you just think about it, and for me, it just feels so much better to say, you know, my heart longing for something, and I'm going to trust that that's what the divine wants next for me, and I'm going to be in the flow of that, right, and trusting in that, in the allowance of that, right?
Yeah.
And then get really clear about how I want to be with that, because if I can be more relaxed, more chill, right, and move in that direction, I don't hit as many road bumps along the way. But we get so attached to the outcome that we want, and then we, one of the poems I share in the book is about the little children that bring their gifts to God because he was his friend, and instead of letting go, they pulled it back and said, "How could you be so slow?" He said, "How could I, my dear? You never did let go, right? Because you have to let go."
Yeah, that's a great. You do have to.
Yeah.
That's I thought that was especially remembering the future part. I thought that was. I thought it was brilliant, actually, because it's exactly what we need to do.
Yeah.
And this is kind of a very physical example of this, but I have dishes, like when we got married, everybody got china and everybody got crystal and all this stuff, right, that you hardly ever use. But so I have all this stuff, and none of my kids want it. They don't. I mean, hey, you want a set of china? No, I got Nani's, my grandma's. I got your grandmother's. I got mine.
Yeah.
Come on, take a set of china.
Yeah.
No. And same thing with the most of the goblets. And the other day I was serving wine, and I thought, well, I'm just going to use these nice ones because we never use them. Why have them?
Right.
So I broke two. But anyway.
That's why you never used them.
Yeah,
and
that's right. So two broke.
Damn,
and
right?
when I was younger, even 10 years ago, maybe, I would have been like, oh God, oh no, I fixed it. I would have, and I just went, oh, sweep it up, toss it in the trash. And I just thought to myself, two less glasses, they're going to pitch when I die.
That you are.
And I just moved on.
Oh my God, you're so funny.
And it was, my husband goes, you didn't even blink an eye when that broke. He said, I remember when you practically divorced me when I broke one.
I know. Oh
I said, well, I'm sorry for that. I said, it might be 30 years too late, but I'm sorry for that.
Yeah, the things that we hang on to,
And they don't mean anything later.
No.
I mean, as you really move forward in your life, it doesn't mean anything. And the importance, that's the other thing. I think everyone tries to be a celebrity today, and you see a lot of that. And let's face it, we're going to be important to the people that love us, and I think you mentioned that in your book. Isn't that right? Talk about that, because I thought that was critical.
Yeah. Well, you get to a point where you surround yourself, you get at a choice point where you start to surround yourself with people who really love and care for you, and the work I call it relationships and mutual giving. And because I'm a people pleaser, I grew up in an environment where I needed to stay under the radar. My behavior, throughout most of my adult life was pleasing and passive. And it didn't serve me, and I ended up getting myself in all sorts of icky situations with people that wanted me to do certain things, and I couldn't say no, and so I did. And then, it turned out in not really productive, healthy ways for me. So I just got really clear about I want and need people in my life who love and support me, who are mutual in the giving. If I'm giving, I don't require anything in return, but I certainly, appreciate. Because at some point, the bank used the deposits and withdrawals from the bank analogy. Sometimes it gets out of balance, and sometimes you can bankrupt yourself if you don't really get clear about what's coming in and what's going out.
And I think you talked a little bit about some grief in your book, too, dealing with that. And that might be, because so many people go through, everybody goes through it. I mean, no one escapes it. Yeah. It's either you're dying or somebody you know is.
That's right.
I mean, and for your entire life.
That's right.
I mean, you get it.
There are no guarantees, this is for sure, right?
But it's so hard for people, especially on difficult deaths. Are very hard.
Yeah, they're
out of time, out of season,
right.
Take too long, go too soon,
right. Right. Yeah, there's, I don't know if I talk about this in the book, but, but we talked about this when I was on your radio show before. When you lose a baby pre-birth, right, when you have what's the word there?
Well,
miscarriage, sorry,
stillborn or a miscarriage,
right?
Yeah, either one.
The grief of that is so intense,
Yeah,
and we really don't honor it. And then when children die, that is so intense. And what, again, a teacher taught me over time was that the younger we are when we lose somebody, like when there's so much history that we live into that they're not there, and so that grief process gets really, really deep until you can work your way through that. Grief. My dad died when I was 19. My brother died at 57. I was with him till the very end, and I tell a lot of Mike's stories in my book, just prepared to laugh, because he was a character.
Mike, right?
Mike, yeah. Mike. And then, as I said, I lost my mom March 5th, 2000, right before COVID hit. And so that was my family of origin, and that was, I kind of felt like an orphan out here for a little bit.
It's weird when all the parents are gone and you're like an orphan.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
oh.
Yeah.
And, you kind of have no safety net. I don't know if it's being an orphan or the fact that our parents, to some degree, are a safety net. At least it was a place you could go home to.
Right.
At least it was,
Right.
somebody you could talk to. They might tell you to get your head out of your butt, as my mother would say. I'd call and say, Mom, move! You gotta get your head out of your butt and do it. Okay.
So funny.
But,
Yeah.
you miss that.
Yeah.
But how
you
do
do.
people, where are some of the areas people get stuck in when they're trying to process through grief?
I think they shove it down, I think people are so uncomfortable with feelings, and this is really the crux of my work, is really to help people to learn that they can feel their feelings and not get lost to them. And so, I see this a lot. Experiences happen and people just shove it down and they keep moving. There was a keynote speaker at this event I was at yesterday, and she talked about she had married a high school sweetheart. She had her whole future planned. He was in medical school. She was support him through that process, and he died tragically in a car accident. And she has spent most of her adult life, as a workaholic and as somebody that has just, transferred all of that grief into a process of, and we all have something that we do to avoid our feelings, right? Whether that's work, whether that's porn, whether that's drugs and alcohol. I mean, we all have something that we do. Perfectionism, that driving.
Yeah.
So
put the energy into it so you don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
And then it just gets deeper.
That's right.
I think today we're much more fortunate that people are aware of that you need to get in touch with your emotions and balance those out, whether it's grief or anything else, anger or anything. It's getting better. It's not there yet, but we're getting better. A lot of anxiety with kids now. I mean, that's what this generation. You have a young woman in the book that you talk about. Why don't you talk about that a little bit? She's 17. Her poem about. I love that.
Maggie.
Maggie. I love that. That was one of my favorite chapters. Maggie. She's cool. I hope if you're listening, Maggie, you're cool.
Yeah, you're so cool. Yeah, this kid. I mean, talk about remembering her future. She was like 12 years old and told her mom she was going to do a TED Talk. So her mom. Anyway, so Maggie decided to, when she was a senior in high school and COVID hit, and everything was canceled, and she was at home in her apartment. Her parents they moved downtown, so they were in a downtown apartment. And she started writing poetry, and the poetry turned out to be just so profound about her experience. Isn't it beautiful?
I know.
Yeah, she's a remarkable kid. So, and I couldn't believe she did this. When we were coaching her, when she was going to be on the TED stage, we encouraged her or asked her if she could memorize the poems, and she said absolutely. And she got up and did them with no notes.
At 17.
At 17
on a TEDx
years old.
stage. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, this kid's,
Makes you feel like a slug, doesn't it, when you meet kids like that?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, okay, well, I'll go back and bake a box of banana bread. You guys change the world.
Maggie Johnson, kudos to you. You're a great kid. Yeah. She's at School of Mines now.
School of Mines? Yeah, she is smart.
Yeah.
I never could get to School of Mines.
No, me either.
I'd be like,
Yeah, it's hard too.
I mean, I'm pretty sure if I applied, they would have just spent the next 10 minutes laughing. I at least gave them a break in the admissions office. Look at this! You gotta be kidding me. I'm gonna look here. I've got a couple notes, so I want to maybe talk about that. And I got a few more notes here. We talked about perfection a little bit. The No Place Like Home, where home is you. That to me was a great chapter. It's like a coming home chapter, but not to a physical place, to coming home to who you are inside. So why don't we talk about that?
Yeah. So I use a lot of Wizard of Oz analogies in the book. I think I'm funny, and so I use a lot of things that crack me up and make me laugh. I use a lot of metaphor in my life because it's a way that helps me process things. So the Wizard of Oz is a big piece, and I actually have a whole collection of it. So that's a long story, but I love that coming home, right? It's that place of like, there's no place like home. There's no place like home, right? And then Glinda says, you had it in you the whole time, right? It was always in you. And so I just love those stories. So the coming home chapter was really about, we spend a lot of our time looking for ourselves outside of ourselves, right? That's called external locus of control in psychology, right? We think if we get the right person in our lives, we get the right house, or we get the right car.
Yeah, we get the new carpet, or we have the granite
exactly,
countertops.
or 10 pounds less, or whatever.
Then we'll be fine.
Then we will have arrived. And I spent a good part of my early years thinking that, if I acquired enough, and I was lucky enough to be able to do that on my own for a while, that I'd arrived. And my big joke was, did I write about the convertible and the Chanel purse?
I think so.
I think one year, I remember Christmas, my husband bought me an authentic Chanel, beautiful gift, and we had a convertible in the garage. And I always thought to myself, oh, I thought if I had the Mercedes convertible in the purse that I made it. And I remember opening that purse and thinking, oh my gosh, what a beautiful gift, and like, shit, I didn't make it. And like, I'm not there yet, right?
What happened? I know.
Like,
it's always around the corner, isn't it?
I know.
It's always around the corner.
Always,
Oh, if I just had $10,000 more,
That's
or
right.
I just could afford to go on this vacation, or I just could, do this, or just do that.
Yeah.
And then you realize that
It's not out
what is
there.
it? You won't have what you want till you want what you have.
That's right.
And that's a saying I've heard, and that's probably one of the truest statements in life. You
That's
won't
right.
have what you want till you want what you have.
That's right. That's right. Accepting what is. Like, anytime we could be in the absolute presence of what is in our lives and be in gratitude for that, that is a heart opener. That is like an opening to the universe to say, yes, you see, you appreciate, right? And those vibrations they take us into higher consciousness in our ability to receive and to give, like, it's reciprocal. So
Well, and it's like Sister Stella. I'll use Sister Stella, who I adore. And if you guys are looking for a nonprofit, Situa, SITEAW.org. She rescues young girls and young women in Uganda and parts of Kenya. And she's currently working on a project, which I can't say what country, but they're girls that have been kidnapped to harvest their organs and sell them. She's currently fighting that, so she's in danger, so we don't want to go into any of that right now. But if you'd like to contribute, you can do so. But Sister Stella, the reason I bring her up is that she's had a hard life.
Yeah, she has.
I mean, a really hard, like we don't even have any clue.
Yeah.
Okay, it's like we're talking under Idi Amin in Uganda, running from soldiers, people getting shot, their village getting shot up, hiding in trucks full of dead bodies. I mean, we're talking things that would just have broken most people. And that woman, the first thing anybody says when you meet Sister, who's a Catholic nun, Sister Stella, is joy.
Yeah.
She lives in joy.
Yeah,
that doesn't mean she doesn't get sad.
Right.
And it doesn't mean things don't hurt, and it doesn't mean things aren't hard, but she has found a joy within herself that just glows. Yeah. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about with your book a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I feel like I have found a sense of peace in my life that I never knew I had before. And it's a journey. It's not a destination. I don't ever think that I've arrived, but I think really doing my inner work, really understanding what I talk about in my book, sharing it with others, I think it's been my journey to bring myself to a place of, incredibly blessed, peaceful. Like I drive around sometimes and I just think, oh my gosh, I'm more present than I've ever been in my life.
I find that too, and I don't know if it's a function of getting older or a function of having had significant loss in your life or recovering from an illness, or just life in general. But I find that too. I'm pretty much at peace with things. It's like, could I have more? Yeah. Do I need more? No.
Right. Loving what is, right back at that, right? Yeah.
And that puts you in a different position, and learning to say no.
Big time.
Big, huge time.
Learning to say no. Boundaries, for sure.
Yeah, that's hard. That's hard for
That's
me,
hard.
because I've always been somebody who's, sure, I can do it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I can do it.
And then the next thing you know, you have
Why
20
the hell
things
am I
on your
doing
plate.
this?
I know, like, oh my God. Why did I write a book?
Yeah, we're like, why'd you write a book? Because everybody needed to hear this, that's
Oh,
why.
thank
Say the
you.
name of the book and how they
Thank
can
you.
get it again.
Oh God, a Second Chances. Here I am again. And it's on Amazon. Pre-order until Tuesday, and then Tuesday it goes live, and it's also on Barnes & Noble.
It's a great book. Let's talk about the divine feminine. You discussed that a little bit in the book. We've got about, I don't know, about 10 minutes left.
Okay.
So 10 minutes, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, the Divine Feminine, shout out to Aspen to KUHS. She was a facilitator, a teacher of mine, a mentor, and she's a dear friend. She really helped bring this to light for me. And I kind of got it years ago when I did a workshop in Chicago, because I really armored up. Like, I was really, like, you just didn't mess with me. You know, I was my 20s, you know, I just was, don't F with me, right? I'll take you out. And what I learned.
I just can't imagine you being that
I know,
way.
right?
Because I got to know the more finished product. I never say finished product because we're not
Yeah,
finished
well,
till
yeah.
we're dead.
Yeah.
But
Well,
the
yeah.
more polished product.
Yeah, right. Well, you know, I was in tough situations with tough people, and my mom had a really edge to her, and I carried that through. I thought that's how you did it, until I learned better, until I learned differently. So I just think that the Divine Feminine, number one, I feel like the feminine energy right now on the planet is what's going to change our world. I really, like, with all my heart, feel like that. And I think women united, right, in this sense of collaboration versus competition or comparing,
Mm-hmm.
right, there's just such a great opportunity. And I can't remember them off the top of my head, but my book features the divine masculine, divine feminine,
Right.
and then the pseudo aspects of those. So, like, pseudo feminine is something like you lose yourself to emotionality to get your way, right? The divine feminine is more present and able to ask for what she wants, right?
Okay.
Not manipulating,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
You're just able to say, this is what I need.
Yeah.
And you don't have to justify it. You need it,
Yeah.
and that's that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, we are entering in, I mean, we are in the age, I think, of Aquarius now, if
That's
I'm not
right.
mistaken.
Yes, we are.
And so a lot of stuff is, and I don't know if people believe in, I don't know if people believe in that or not, but I believe it's all connected spiritually, not to God, but not necessarily God as some old man sitting up in heaven,
Right.
but more as a spiritual connection. And I believe that that we are in that age of when these children come of age that are being born and are young now, plus the millennials, we're going to see a different world.
Yeah.
We're going to see a
Yeah.
different world because
Yeah.
they're called differently,
Yeah.
and they're compassionate, and they have a sense of team versus
Yeah.
I.
Collaboration.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's what's going to take, because now there's like 60 billion or 6 people on the planet, and it used to be, you know, I could pull myself up by my bootstraps because you had the land to grow the potatoes and you had the, you know, whatever you had. But with this many people, it's the way that we are living isn't going to be sustainable for a long
No,
time.
it's not.
So we have to look at teams and how are we going to approach this and what are we going to do to make it a kinder and better world.
Right.
Because we're called to make it a kinder and better world,
yeah.
not a harsher world.
That's right.
Not to make some people's lives miserable and others not.
That's right.
You know.
Another favorite author I quote in my book is Daniel Pink, and he talks about a whole new mind, and he talks about how the right brain and everything we've been through the last 100 years has been automated through the computer systems, et cetera, or outsourced. And he says it's the right brain thinkers that are going to change the world, which has a lot more to do with creativity, compassion, connection, all the things.
It has to be, because right now, the left brain world that we live in is becoming harsher and harsher and harsher.
That's right.
And we really should be evolving to be a kinder and gentler world, and we're not.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm guilty of that too, because I get mad at people. I get mad at people for being mean, then I'm mean to them. It's like you've done the same thing. It's like they gotcha.
Okay.
You gotta get over it.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're gonna have to wrap it up. So my guest has been Christy Belt. Christy I have known for several years, and she is an author, TEDx speaker, as I mentioned earlier. She is a recipient of the 25 Most Powerful Women in Business Award in Denver. And you're so gentle. You always think of these powerful businesswomen as being, and you're just a sweetheart.
No, well, thank
And
you.
and her life's work it has been to help people realize who they are, where they came from, getting through it, getting over it, and
Yep.
moving on.
Yeah.
And helping companies do the same to increase profitability. Tell them about your business again and your book. Give it one
Yeah,
last plug,
thank
and then
you.
we'll say goodbye.
Appreciate it. Empowerment Coaching and Consulting, and I can be found at ChristyBells.com.
Spell your last name, B-E-L-Z.
Right, Christy, C-H-R-I-S-T-Y, Bells, B-E-L-Z.com. You can go to my website and see all my offerings, learn a lot of new things, and the invitation for the book launch is still up. If you want to come on Tuesday to meet me in person, I'd love to have you. Please RSVP so we can do the catering properly. And what else was I supposed to say?
Tell them how to get your book.
Oh, my book is on Amazon. Thank you. It is on Amazon right now. Just Google "Oh God of Second Chances." It'll pop up, and it's also on Barnes and Noble.
And it is a great read, so I encourage everyone to grab a copy of the book and then use it.
Yeah, use the tools.
Use the tools
They
in the
work.
book.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's so good to see you again, my friend. It's been
thank
a
you
few
so
months.
much. I
It's
appreciate
nice
it.
to
Yeah.
see you. And we'll catch you guys in 2 weeks. We'll be back to the music on KUHSdenver.com in just